If you were to ask me what the best dedicated emulation handheld is, if money was no object, I would ask why you don't just get a Steam Deck and put EmuDeck on it. But if you wanted one device that just did emulation, and that's it, then Ayn has been making the best stuff for quite some time. Their last Android device was the Ayn Odin 2. It's just an Android device, so you start off with a clean slate. But it's extremely easy to set up with emulators. And the Ayn Odin 2 is extremely powerful. It can emulate whatever console you want, all the way up to even Nintendo Switch if you try hard enough. What we're talking about today is the Ayn Odin 2 Mini. This one is the exact same thing with the exact same internals, but it has this gorgeous mini LED screen. The whole device is way, way prettier. It looks an awful lot like a big PlayStation Vita, but more than that, it just looks and feels really premium. And it should feel premium because it's $400. With that price point, it's hard to justify getting something like this. You can get a Steam Deck for around the same price, and that could play whole AAA brand new PC games. This is an extremely powerful Android device, so maybe it's worth it if there's some Android games that you want to play, or maybe you want something that's small and you don't care about modern PC games, I guess. Or maybe you just like collecting niche emulation handhelds. Well then, from that perspective, I guess I understand the hype. Before we go any further, I have to drill this into your head. Factor75.com/yahungry50. This video is sponsored by Factor. They have an exciting new technology. It's called Lunch. Factor's fresh and never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. All I have to do is heat and enjoy. You can skip the grocery store prep, work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-curated, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your doorstep. You don't even have to think about it. It's just there. And they even got smoothies and juices and wellness shots. I didn't even have to read the script. It's drilled into my head like it should be drilled into yours. Factor75.com/yahungry50. That way, if the description deletes itself this time, you'll know where to go again. Click the link below, because that's got some tracking in it or something. Hi, my name is Bob. I've been using Factor for a while now because sometimes I forget to eat and then, whoa, there it is in the fridge, all ready to go. I just pop it in the microwave for 2 minutes or 7 minutes in the oven. I like to do the oven. I don't like microwaves. I think the government uses them to try to pin us against each other politically. And you can try it for yourself over at, what was it? Let me hear you say it. You're so good. Now get you 50% off of your first Factor box and 20% off of your next meal. That's so generous. So let everybody say thank you, Factor, or click the link below because there is a link this time. The second I took this thing out of the box, I was kind of in awe of how nice it looked. It does look an awful lot like a Vita, but it is significantly larger than my slim one here. But that doesn't mean the whole thing is large. It's a good size. It's significantly smaller than an original Ayn Odin 2, and even a Switch Lite. It feels really good too. It has analog triggers and clicky bumpers. The analog sticks feel significantly better than the little nubbins you get on an original Vita, but they're small enough where this thing is still pocketable. Clicky buttons have gotten a bad rap these days. These are clicky in pretty much the exact same way a modern Xbox controller's buttons are clicky, but not as clicky as an original Vita. The D-pad, however, is substantially clicky. It feels just like an original Vita. The only thing that I don't like about the buttons here is that the D-pad is on the bottom. I would prefer that on the top because I'm gonna be playing mostly retro games on this thing and it'd be more comfortable if it was on the top. Also, that's just where the D-pad is on the original Vita, you know? The device you're trying to mimic here. The speakers are also so loud and the max volume doesn't even diminish the quality all that much.
Is this max volume?
It sounds good. It's loud. The star of the show is this screen. It's mini LED. This is a significant improvement over the original Odin 2. It's gorgeous. It looks a lot like an OLED. The black levels aren't supposed to be as deep as OLED,
but they look pretty damn deep to me. The colors are great too. They look a lot greener on an OLED Switch. Ayn did a great job here. This thing also has a gyro in it, just like a Vita, but no touchpad on the back. So you're not getting the full Vita experience, but you're getting pretty damn close.
Besides all that, it is essentially just an Ayn Odin 2 Pro. It has the exact same CPU, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and it has the same 12 gigabytes of RAM and the same 256 gigabytes of internal storage. So it performs pretty much identically to the Ayn Odin 2 Pro, and for that reason, I'm not going to be doing all of the tests that I normally do with all of these emulation handhelds. If you want all of that, you could just watch the Ayn Odin 2 Pro video. Just keep in mind that there are 3 versions of the original Ayn Odin 2. There's the base, there's the Pro, and then there's the Max. In that video, I showcased the Pro and the Max. I bought the Max myself, and a lot of that video is using the Max. The performance difference between the Pro and the Max is negligible. This one, the Mini, does not come in a Max orientation. It's only base or Pro. This one that I have here is the Pro. Back then, I reviewed the Ayn Odin 2 from the perspective of somebody who just wanted a super powerful emulation handheld. They would probably want to emulate Nintendo Switch games. For that, and because of the price breakdown, you would probably just want the most powerful device to get the most out of it. So I was recommending the Max if you wanted to play Nintendo Switch games, even though the performance difference between the Pro and the Max was kind of negligible. This one doesn't have a Max. I don't think that's really that big of a deal, but the Pro is $400. So it's already more than the Pro of the original Odin 2. Hey, 3716 is not bad. That's pretty close to what the Odin 2 Max got on my original tests. This is pretty good, even though it's in a smaller form factor. You're paying a little bit of a premium price for a slightly more premium product. The form factor is nicer, it's way prettier, and that screen is great. When you first get this thing, it's a clean slate. It puts you through the setup that any Android device does, and it gives you the option to use Ayn's own launcher. I do like Ayn's simple launcher, so I went with that. Now, I'm lazy, so instead of setting up all my emulators myself, I used the Android version of EmuDeck, which I made a video on a few months ago. Since that video, they have updated EmuDeck for Android. I made a YouTube short on it. They actually called one of the updates the Bob Edition because of all the issues that I had with it. Thank you. It's a lot better now. It still has some issues here and there, but it does make your life a little bit easier. I had to set up PP, SSPP, Vita 2K, and Yuzu pretty much by myself after the setup was done, but it got me like 80% of the way through the process and even set me up with a pretty nice launcher. EmuDeck uses Pegasus. That's the launcher you're going to use to launch all your games. And the default theme that it comes with looks just fine. I should mention that Vita doesn't show up on the Pegasus launcher. You have to launch that outside of Pegasus for some reason. Even though you could set the Vita folder in the settings. It's already there. It's already set up, but it just doesn't want to show you Vita games for some reason. Now, there are launchers on Android that can help sell that Vita look a little bit better. There's like the Beacon launcher that you can get to look just like a Vita home screen. But I'm fine with the way that Pegasus looks by default. Also, the Vita launcher isn't that good. We're only going to be using this to launch our games, so I just want a list of all of my ROMs that I can easily navigate, and Pegasus is just fine for that. Speaking of ROMs, I just plugged this into my computer with the included USB-C to USB-C cable. It's probably the nicest USB-C cable that's ever come with any of these things. I set USB to file transfer on the Odin and just dragged my ROMs into the Odin that way. It has a micro SD card slot, but 256 gigabytes of internal storage. That's more than enough to just put all of my ROMs directly on the device. Plus, it transferred super fast because it's just going from device to device. And as you could expect, everything emulates amazing on here. The screen is only 5 inches, so you can get away with like 3DS stuff with the 2 screens, but you might want a little bit of a larger screen to stack the 2 3DS screens side by side. I was also reminded by my chat to get the latest turn-up GPU drivers for Dolphin, Citra, Vita 2K, and Yuzu emulation. This increases the performance of those emulators by a decent amount. Dolphin and Citra should cause no problems for you whatsoever. Vita emulation is still not perfect, and Yuzu is just asking a lot for any device. Speaking of yuzu, that's currently a big no-no word because Nintendo took that down a couple of months ago. Same thing with Citra, but it's not too hard to find it with a quick Googling. It's very hard to wipe things from the internet forever. I decided I'm gonna treat this thing a lot differently than I would normally treat an emulation handheld. This thing looks an awful lot like a Vita, so I'm gonna go ahead and play PSP and Vita games on this thing. PSP plays fantastic.
Gran Turismo seems to run just fine. Look, I can even fast forward. Jesus.
I even managed to get my Peace Walker save file on here.
Yes.
I took it off my hacked Vita.
What you're gonna wanna do is move the folder that PPSSPP uses for game files. Put that in your ROMs folder. Then you can just drag and drop your save files.
Peace Walker usually runs poorly on most cheap retro handhelds.
Peace Walker seems to run mostly good, but unfortunately, the mission that I'm on in my save file won't load. And I can't figure out how to get the turnip drivers to work on here, so I guess your mileage will vary here. Oh, come on.
I don't usually play Vita games on any of these retro handhelds. I don't think I've ever emulated Vita games. Well, I learned during this whole process that emulating Vita games is a huge pain in the ass. You have to, like, install the game files. I have a hacked Vita. I did a video on it a while ago, so I figured why not just move my games from my Vita's micro SD card over to my new fake Vita. That took a very long time to figure out. I will link you 2 of the videos that helped me out during this process. They were both by a YouTuber named The New Game Plus. I will say those are best watched at 2 times speed. One of those videos was for the game files, specifically if you have the cartridge, but it also works for downloaded games, which is what I had to do. And the other one was for save files. They're both very helpful. The one little note that I'll add is that if you're using a PC, you're going to want to change your Windows Explorer settings to unhide protected system files. Is that exactly what it is? Unhide protected operating system files in your Windows Explorer settings. Otherwise, your computer won't be able to access a lot of the important Vita files, like your games. But even after all of this, not all games will work on Vita 2K. Super Meat Boy and Titan Souls just do not install. Helldivers does install, but constantly crashes. Gravity Rush, which was the only game I really cared about, did work, and it worked quite well. Even my save file worked. There were some weird graphical glitches before the turnip drivers. After installing the turnip drivers, things worked a bit better. Still not one-to-one with a real Vita, but remarkably close. Even the motion controls just worked. I didn't have to map anything. Here I am, playing Gravity Rush just like I would on my Vita. It's pretty awesome to see. Now, I already feel what you're typing in the comments. Why would somebody buy one of these $400 things when they can just buy a Vita? And if you just want to play Vita games, you should just buy a Vita. It is the best place to play Vita games. And if you want to hack it to play Vita ROMs, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but if you try hard enough, you could do it and have a fine time. You'd get the Odin 2 Mini for Vita games and everything else that it can do. It's a retro game powerhouse. You can emulate older games on a PlayStation Vita, but it doesn't do a good job with a lot of them. An Ayn Odin 2 Mini would do a much better job. It's easier to get going for retro emulation, and it's a lot more versatile than a hacked Vita. But still, it's hard to justify spending $400 on something like this when the Steam Deck exists. You can get one for the same price, and it's a lot more capable. It's even more powerful and can play even more stuff because it's built for modern AAA PC games. You can't play Elden Ring on an Ayn Odin 2 Mini. You can on the Steam Deck. That makes the Steam Deck clearly the better value. It's just that this thing is way smaller than a Steam Deck. After holding the Odin 2 Mini and using it for a bit, I kind of get it. It is way cooler than the original Odin 2 because of how pocketable it is and how sleek it looks. And this screen is awesome. So, I don't know, if you've got the money to burn, I can see why someone would want one of these. Now, I did not purchase this myself. This is a review unit that was sent to me by Ayn by my request. I asked for it because $400 is a lot. I don't want to spend that. I made a video a couple months ago about their PC handheld, the Ayn Loki, and I spent a decent amount of time talking about my buying process with that device. Just to summarize it, it was a shit show. But I did crowdfund the Loki. This is already out. You can just go to their website and buy it. So you should have a much better time getting one of these things if you really want to than you would if you had to crowdfund it. I will note that Ayn does have a history of just removing SKUs from their website, so it is possible that in the future, this just becomes unavailable. They just forget about it, wipe it from existence, or becomes unsupported by them. A lot of companies are under fire right now for their bad customer service, like Asus recently. Unfortunately, this handheld space is riddled with companies with bad customer service. No one is really safe. My original Steam Deck that I purchased is broken. The 3 dots button, it thinks it's always held down when it's not. I tried taking it apart. Anything I do doesn't fix it. So we submitted an RMA request, and it's just outside of warranty. It would cost me a couple $100s to get them to fix it. My point isn't to swing my influencer-ness to try to get them to fix it. I want to approach this like a normal customer would. My point here is that there is no company in this PC or retro handheld space that handles customer service perfectly. I don't know why I decided to use the Ayn Odin 2 mini review to talk about this. I guess my point here is that this device is not for somebody who is trying to make a sound financial decision. This isn't something you'd want to save your money for. This isn't gonna solve all of your problems. I'm not sure how reliable this thing is. This is for people who are willing to spend a decent amount of money on a relatively powerful retro handheld that looks and feels premium. This is the Lambo of retro handhelds. You don't drive this thing to Costco. You take it out to have fun. And you hopefully had the money to spend on it. I will often get asked by people, should I buy this handheld or that handheld? And if you have to ask that about the Ayn Odin 2 Mini, the answer is probably no. You already know if this one's for you. You shouldn't even have to ask. So what do you guys think about the Odin 2 Mini? Have you been wanting an Odin and did this finally sell you on it? Are you still confused why anybody would want to get something like this? Leave it in the comments below, at me on Twitter, and all this other social media garbage. Hey, maybe there's like an Android game that you play all the time that this would make your life a little easier with. Call of Duty Mobile, Warzone Mobile has Verdansk now. I think next week is going to be the RG Cube that everybody's already been talking about, but you know, I like to do a video a week, leave me alone. I haven't even opened this yet, and they told me that they sent me one with a bad screen. So we'll see how that looks. Hey, I stream on twitch.tv/Wulff all of the time. That's where I set this thing up and had people in the chat help me out with that. Hey, I should probably say that I'm gonna be at Too Many Games at the end of the month in Pennsylvania. I'm gonna be doing a panel with the Nerd Nest guys, including Retro Game Core, Fan the Deck, those guys. You can come over there and see that. Most important thing you can do to help support this channel is just subscribe right here and share this video with a friend who is thinking about getting into retro handhelds, or just somebody who loves the Vita so much. Thank you very much. Jesus.